There we go. Took me a bit to figure that out. So, hi everyone. Um, this is Cassie with the Clinton Public Library. Uh, as you can see, we're writing club meeting right now. Start in just a few minutes just to see if anyone does show up. Um, sorry, I'm on a different computer than I usually am, and it's there we go. There is our theme for this time, and it is word counts and why they matter. I'm going to be starting in just a few minutes. As always, you can always add as always, you can always, I was just checking if it was going to be if it had picked up on my voice, so alright, that's that one. Alright, and that's that one. Sorry, I was just double checking and making sure that the volume was actually working, and it is. So, go and give it about another couple minutes, and so far it doesn't seem anyone is showing up physically in person, but as soon as it hits, 5:05, we will go on to the actual meat and potatoes of what tonight's thing is. In the meantime, I'm going to talk to you about things that are going on at the library. Um, we are currently in the summer reading program for both children and adults. Uh, Today we had Pretty Funny Balloons, which apparently was a really popular program. We had like 50 people here. Awesome. Our next children's program for the summer reading program is going to be on Thursday. We're going to be doing a Disney karaoke interactive movie kind of thing. It's going to be Tangled. So if you like that movie, think of coming down. It's at 2 o'clock. Be having a bunch of fun. It's not just for the kids. Speaking of not just for the kids, for the adults, we are still in first place, but we are hanging on by our fingernails. Iowa is coming right up on our behinds. They're only like 60 hours behind us, maybe even less. I don't remember the exact numbers, but they're getting less than 100 behind us. So if you haven't added your reading to your reading log, please do so. Um, we really want to get we really want to do like a clean sweep of our first year, please. And the adult one goes on all the way until Labor Day. So do remember, even if the kids one ends on the 12th, their drawing is on the 14th of July. The adult one runs until September the 1st. So keep adding your reading, please. We want to win that trophy so bad. So like I said, the children's finale is going to be coming up on the 14th of July. We're going to have like fire department's going to be here. Kids can touch the trucks. We're I think we've gotten a snow cone place to come. So even if it's hot, you'll have snow cones. Um, all right, it looks like it is 5:05, so I am officially going to say it is time to start. And that means you get to see me down in the corner here while I give you my speech for the night. So, our theme for this month is word counts and why do they matter? So, we're going to just do basics first. What is a word count? Word count equals the amount of words in a manuscript. This may or may not include words like a and the. It depends on how the program is set up if these words are counted or not. Some word count programs actually have like a character limit for what they consider a word, despite the fact that a and the and no and is and other two-letter words are complete words. Some programs will not actually read them as complete words. So just keep that in mind. That's how you can get like different word counts between different word counting software is based on what they count as a word. If you don't have a word count and you are like, this used to be an old rule of thumb for the typewriter days, page count times 250 is your word count, as the average words per page is about 250 words. That's the average. That only applies to like young adult and adult. It does not apply to children's books. They are a bit more difficult to define. If you are looking for word count for children's books, I do recommend AR Bookfind. Um, Let me show you. This is the accelerated reader. Sorry, it's a touch screen and I'm getting used to it. So let's say you wanted to know Harry Potter, and no, let's not do Harry Potter. Let's do Are You My Mother? So there is, it's not on there. Oh, there you are. Are You My Mother by E.D. Eastman. See, it tells you right there. It's 699 words. So for children's books, we'll see later on that is kind of what we want to aim for, but we'll go into that in deeper detail in just a little bit. Sorry, I'm going to be flipping through to see if there are any comments because the streaming studio that we're using doesn't like let me have chat boxes up. So if I pause and you see me looking over the screen real quick, that's what I'm doing. I'm checking to see if anyone has any um, questions. Da-da, da-da-da-da. So that is the basics of what a the word count, the basic formulas, all that good stuff. Books by word count can be generalized into the young adult and adult sections. They are kind of grouped together um, because they have similar word count needs. The YA or the teen level is just a little bit smaller than the adult. It'll make more sense once I start explaining. Anything that's 100 words or less is generally called flash fiction, also called microfiction. It's 100 words or less. You see this a lot for things like, say, magazine writing, which we'll cover next month, uh, stuff like that. Or it might be like competitions and stuff that they want you to write. They want you to write something in 100 words or less. Generally, anything between 1,000 and 10,000 is considered a short story, with the average generally being beneath 7,500. Short stories can either be done by themselves, you'll find those a lot online. Also, there are things such as anthologies, which will take short story and all bind them together, usually under some kind of theme. 7,500 to 17,500 are generally going to be your novelette. That is, you see them a lot on Kindle Unlimited, the things that are pretty short, maybe like 5 chapters, usually less. Sometimes it's just one big block, but they're bigger than a short story, but they are smaller than a novella, which is your 17,500 to 40,000 words. This is what you'll see a lot on, like with ebooks, is it's not exactly long enough to be considered a true novel. Um, this is also often what, if you're familiar with National Novel Writing Month, even though it's not around anymore, but the goal was to write 50,000 words in a month. The goal was to write basically a novella in a month. A novel is generally considered anywhere from 70,000 to 100,000 words or more. This can be changed though, because you're going to have things like romance novels that are actually less than that. We'll get into the genre part in the next slide, or in the next slide after this. Now, this is children's and middle grade, which have a different scale. Your 200 to your 25 to your 200 words, that's going to be your board book. What I like to jokingly call a chewable. They're the ones that are like really hard. They're made out of like almost cardboardy substance, not paper, so that babies put in mouth. Your picture books are going to be anywhere from 250 to 750, with 750 being the higher end. For example, the one I did, Are You My Mother, um, is nearing 700. Cat in the Hat is um, a surprising 1,621. So, as I was saying, these are not like rules, like it has to be within these. There's wiggle room. 1,000 to 2,000 is generally considered your early readers. Here in our library, those would be the yellow labels down in children's. Early chapter books are 5,000 to 20,000, with your middle grade novels being 20,000 to 55,000. Those are generals. The things for children in middle grade are a lot more flexible than, say, for the adult, just because of the nature of the beast. You're going to have a lot of differences between, say, a kid who's in first grade and reading novels versus a kid who's in third or fourth grade and are reading chapter books. So it's just a lot of. Can you still hear me? I'm just very hesitant and cautious about this software at times. All right, so that's the children's and middle grade. There's a little bit more wiggle room there. Um, Again, these are not hard and fast rules. They are not things that you have to absolutely keep with. These are general guidelines. If this is your first time, you're going to want to hit some of those guidelines so that if you're trying to get, let's like say it's the first book you're trying to get published, and you want to publish a chapter book and it is only 4,000 words. Depending on what kind of chapter book that is, you may be in one of the early chapter books. I know there's several, like the Library of Doom is actually on the shorter side when it comes to word count. Um, and those are considered early chapter books. Um, if you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm looking up on the AR Book Finder, or at least trying to find them. Uh, I'm looking for a couple titles for the Library of Doom. The Word Eater. This is a early chapter book, but it is only 780 pages. So, like I was saying, you're going to have a difference between the two. There we go. Now I have the right tab up. All right, going on to the next one. Another thing that's going to affect your word count, besides what demographic you're aiming for, is going to be your genre. Your genre will change your word count expectation. For example, with the adults, romances are generally going to be the shortest novels, with 50,000 words being considered normal for the adult age category. If you're writing fantasy or sci-fi, you're going to want to be averaging somewhere between 90,000 and 120,000 for both young adult and adult. For middle grade, around 80 to 90,000, sometimes 100,000 is the average. I wasn't able to get that down on there. It got deleted somehow. The next biggest one you're going to find is going to be your historical fiction and your memoirs, ranging from 80,000 to 100,000. So historical fiction, you may end up going up into that 120,000. Why? World building. If it's going to be, I hate to put it like this, but romance doesn't generally have really heavy world building if it's just a straight romance. Um, Versus, say, a sci-fi romance or fantasy romance or historical romance, because you need to explain how the world works, what's the setup, more descriptive writing compared to, say, mystery or contemporary or romance writing, which is going to be more do. You're going to get a lot more flowery language when it comes to fantasy and sci-fi and romance. which we'll be covering later in this speech. These are generally the industry standards, but again, they can be like tweaked with if you're doing something. Industry standards here. This is what I was talking about. This was mostly going to affect those who are going to want to be traditionally published, because agents and publishing houses are going to be looking for specific links. If you ever go to do like a query letter to a agent, the first thing they're going to ask you for is, what is your word count? So bear in mind, if you're trying to get traditionally published, you need to be in those word count goals for the genre and for the age group that you are aiming for. However, these kind of things can change over time. For example, before the publication of Twilight in the early 2000s, most teen books went from about 50,000 up to 80,000, and the ones that hit 80,000 were going to be your sci-fi and your fantasy. That was like the top. No one thought that teens or kids had the attention span to read anything longer. Then comes Stephanie Meyer and Twilight, and she came out with a heavy 118,000 plus word count book, and it sold like hotcakes. So publishers became more willing to take on a risk for longer books. Also, as an example for this, you can see the progression of the Harry Potter series going from, I think, 116,000. Yeah, I've got to look that up now. Let me share that with you guys. This is why I like AR Bookfinder. And the Sorcerer's Stone. All right, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer/Philosopher's Stone. That was 77,000. Now Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Which is the last book in the series. That one went all the way up to nearly 200,000 words. So what I'm trying to say is, the publishers, if you have a background, even if you don't, I still think the Twilight should have been more heavily edited down. But that is a personal thing, and I'm willing to argue with people on that. So, but yeah, publishers are more willing to take risks with longer books for teen or for YA and for middle grade too. So there is wiggle room in that. You are going to want to hit the minimum though, or else they're just going to round bin it when they see, oh, you're writing a fantasy for teens and you only got 40,000 written. All right, I did this just as a kind of a haha funny thing. The most and the least written authors are the authors with the highest word counts and some of the lowest word counts. This is the most: Stephen King, Daniel Steele, James Patterson, Stuart Woods, Debbie Macomber, Nora Roberts, including when she wrote as J.D. Robb. I will add in Stephen King was including his Richard Bachman nom de plume. Robert J. Parker and Nicholas Sparks for the adults, and for the juveniles, R.L. Stine, Chris Pine, Mary Downing Hahn, Cassandra Clare, Rick Riordan, Barbara Park, Mary Pope Osborne, and Holly Black. Those are going to be your ones who make up the huge chunks of word count. Like, not even just individual books, but stuff that they have out. For the least side, I didn't have very many because you can name a bunch of authors who have only been published once. I chose some of the more famous ones. Yeah, there's only 4. Harper Lee, she only had 1 book out until she came out with that second one. Sylvia Plath, Anna Sewell, and William A. Gold. You can look those people up on your own time. Now to the nitty-gritty of what you might be here for writing club to do. I've explained to you why it's important to have word counts that match, or at least hit a minimum. Now we're going to talk about how to get more words into your book. If you are on your first draft, do not panic. If your first draft is a bit or a lot, which is what happens to me, short on your words, do not panic. Remember, first drafts are for your story's bones. You can add more, you can layer more, you can add B plots, C plots, romance side plots, character arcs. You can add those in your next draft. You want to get your basic plot down on paper in your first draft. when you go back and do your second draft or you do your revising that you'll worry about word count. If you're just in your first draft stage, do not worry about word count. Worry about getting your story on paper. If you are now past the first draft stage and you need to add stuff to it to get your word count up, add plot lines. You're going to have your one plot line that is your entire book, possibly your book series. Think of adding a B plot or a C plot, a romance plot. Do your side characters have arcs? Um, can you make your description? Are your descriptions just like the trees are green versus explaining like how the forest looks like a green carpet, but only if it's important. We'll get into that into the cutting down stage. You want your descriptions to be worth it, but not too flowy. Dialogue. Dialogue will push up your word count. Do not be afraid of dialogue. Also, do not be afraid of putting in tags like said, screamed, cried, whimpered, etc. There are some people who tell you don't use them at all. Use them. If you don't need them in your editing, your editor will go through and they will remove them if they aren't important. But don't be afraid to use them. Dialogue tags are important. Not using them can be a detriment to your story. There is a difference between someone who screamed versus someone screamed something versus someone who cried something. It's a different emotional toll. This is also the point in which you can smooth your transitions between chapters or between plot points or between action points. You can also slow down the action by adding in extra stuff. Not extra, but this is where you're going to add in your B plots. This is where you're going to add in the stuff that let's say you're killing character C off later on in the book. This is where you get your audience to like character C, and then you kill them off and really give them a heart-wrenching thing. Yes, be evil. Be evil. How to shorten your word count. Kill your darlings. I recommend going on to readsy.com and reading their entire article on kill your darlings. That is a thing that you will hear get said a lot amongst writing staff, that writers, I find it's easiest if I'm writing like too long or my thing has, like, let's say it gets up to 250,000 and I don't want it to be that long. I will set it aside for a couple of months so my brain forgets it, and then I will come back and I'm going, oh, this is horrible. And then it gets shortened down to what I want it to be. If it doesn't serve the story, cut it. If do you have a page-long description of a character's hair or a place that appears only once and it's not central to the plot? Cut it. This is where you're going to end up with stuff like purple prose and sesquiquotian loquaciousness. I will explain. Purple prose is overly elaborate and ornate writing that draws excessive attention to itself rather than enhancing the story. This is... Sir, do you need help with something? Do you need help finding something, sir? Can you go down this hallway? Sorry about that. Active library, gotta help patrons. They are our lifeblood. As much as I like you guys. So, where was I? All right, sesquiquotian loquaciousness and stuff like purple prose. That doesn't mean flowery. You can have characters. You can have characters who speak flowery, who have You can have flowery descriptions. Flowery does not mean purple prose if flowery serves a purpose, such as setting up a time. If that is how the character speaks, that is how the character speaks. There is one, oh, who's the guy who wrote the Belgariad? David Eddings. Okay. David Eddings had a whole point in one of his books where they went to this, where the characters went to this goddess's domain, and everything was described in what would be normally be considered purple prose. Like this was the sesquiquiddian loquaciousness I was talking about, using 5 words when 1 word will do. Yeah, that was an effect of the domain they were in. So it served the purpose of doing that within the writing. This guy was very good at it. So that sesquiquiddian loquaciousness that I was talking about, that is using 5 words to describe one. Instead of saying I used a ruler, I procured, what is that? Loquaciousness. Here we go. Instead of saying we used a ruler, we utilized a linear distance analyzer. Which one makes more sense? But we used a ruler. The flowery language one is like, what are you even trying to say? All right. Another way to shorten your word count, what I call the Tolkien method. Write your entire story and then divide it into navigable chunks. I call it that because Tolkien originally wanted Lord of the Rings to be one large volume. His publisher or his agent, I'm not entirely certain, divided it into 3 parts due to publishing issues, like paper shortages at the time. Do you remember that at the time it was being written, it was like World War One post. So post World War One. So yay. Um, so that we're and they were going into World War Two. So that's one way that you can do work around it. It works best for stuff like sci-fi and fantasy. It is helpful in that you'll have the entire book series done, and you'll have the whole book. You can just divide it into sections and use them that way, as long as each section is within the word count of the kind that you're trying to do. Like you can do it. You can make a whole novel and then divide it into novellas. I've seen that. I've seen writers do that. You see that also a lot with graphic novels. They will have arcs and then they come out in an omnibus. It's like that in reverse. Another option you have, this one I'm personally doing myself right at the moment, serialization. Still too long, and or you don't want to have paper publishing, or there can be other reasons you want to do it. You can consider serialization online. There's various places you can do this. One that I know of is Space Battles Forum, the Sufficient Velocity Forum, Royal Road, Wattpad, those things. Those are considered serializations. Do note that you do still need to edit your stuff. It may be harder to get paid if you want to get paid doing it this way, but there are several book series that I read myself that started off as as web serials. So it is a thing where they go from web serial to published book. It is a thing. Anna Todd with her After series. It originally started as a web serialization. It was a fan fiction, technically, of a One Direction fan fiction. But that is another way that you can work on not exactly shortening your word count, but changing the format helps. Here's another way that you can really work on your word count. Write every day. Write something every day, even if it's only 100 words. If you need incentives, there are programs like For the Words, which is now free, or it has a free tier. There's also a buying tier, a bot tier. You can also do is long and bright and scary, and I am typing many words. Yay! So you can see that this is like an RPG type deal. Uh, um, Hear me, for I am the destroyer of worlds. I shall devour the world. And it's, you can see how it really helps you with getting that getting that word count in, especially since an RPG system can make your little Skinner box enabled brain go, ooh, rewards very fast. Finally, here are some online word counters. Do be cautious of them. Some of them are AI, so you may want to not put your stuff in them. I'll go over some of the good stuff some of these have. Things like reading time, generally 250 words per minute. That's roughly a page a minute is the average reading time. It can be anywhere from 250 to 300. That's the formula. Um, Speaking time is different. Speaking time, in case you want to make is good to find out in case you want to do a audiobook version. There is also grade level estimates. So the one I'm showing you right now is wordcounter.net. You can see over here in the corner, it has like reading level, reading time, speaking time. So that can help if you're wanting to get like a oh shoot, I forgot. No, there we go. Oh, that's not what I wanted. There's screen share. So that's something can have wordcount.net. It does much the same. This is one of the ones I say be careful because it's got AI with it, and we all know my opinion on AI. Um, Quillbot is a plugin for, you can get it as a plugin for Chrome. Um, it can help with the reading time and the grade level. It'll also tell you your characters, your words, sentences, and paragraphs that can be useful for editing purposes. Um, Wordvice AI, again, this is an AI, so you may not want to do it, or you may want to be careful. It will also do proofreading and grammar checking. Like I said, it will give you roughly the reading time and the speech time, which can be good for you if you are working within like a certain age range. Like if you're wanting it to be like a very fast read, um, if you're wanting it to be for like third graders, let's say you want third to sixth graders, that will give you your average reading level. Um, and then the last one is Grammarly, which can also act as a spell checker and grammar checker. Do be aware it is an AI program as well. Um, it has a free and a paid tier. Um, but yeah, these can be very helpful um, for how to put it, for controlling your word counts, figuring out if you're hitting your target goals, things like that. Like I said, it's especially useful to have a word counter that can tell you what the average grade level or reading level you are doing, so that if you're aiming for like middle grade or teen, specifically lower end of teen, something more like fourth and fifth versus ninth and up, ninth grade and up, and you're wanting more something 6 through 8 versus 9 through 12, those can be useful, very useful. It can also tell you if you are writing down too far, if you're not using high enough vocabulary. Um, so it's up to you if you want to use them. I do suggest using at least one other one besides your word processor's word counter because, like I said at the beginning, different word counters can have different word counts because of the way they are programmed. So you'll want to keep that in mind for when you're looking at word counts. The word count in your word processor may be different than what the word count your agent is seeing, an agent or publisher is seeing because they're using a different algorithm for their word counter. Um, there's not much more to say about word counts. Writing every day will help with your word count. Reading will help with your word count. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much all it is for tonight. This is actually one of the shorter streams that we've done. Yay. Uh, do tune in next month. I'm going to be talking about writing for magazines, especially e-magazines and fiction ones, as well as things like zines or fanzines. Uh, and the like. I'm going to be doing a little bit more in depth in this one because this is something I have actually done myself. Um, so I do have a little bit of personal experience. No, I am not going to be telling you my writing name. I do not want you guys to be able to find me. But I am going to describe what it is like to write for like an e-magazine versus a fanzine. Primarily, it's payment. Fanzines don't pay usually. um, But yeah, if there are any questions, you can always email them to me. It's Cassie at clintonpl.lib.in.us. Don't forget to join our Google Classroom. I will be putting up the assignment for this week, or for this week, for this month, so that you can turn in your writing for the month and have us, the staff here at the library, look it over and critique it for you. Um, we do go by the idea that if you don't like if you're doing something that you're gonna be like, we'll put in. It is my opinion that blah blah blah, or if it's there's any or my personal critiquing. If I say something bad, I also have to say something good. So, uh, all right, I do believe that is all for today. So I'm going to